So welcome to the quick start on the NetAlly AirCheck G2. My name's Mike Pennacchi, owner of a company called Network Protocol Specialist here in Seattle. So why am I doing this? Well, because I do training on these tools. So what I wanted to do was do a session where we talked about how do we get started with this? Because here's the thing. If you don't use this, you're not going to get any better with it. So I don't want this thing just sitting in your drawer. I don't want you to buy it thinking that this is going to protect your network just by owning it. It's not. The way it's going to protect your network and make sure that things are working properly is by going out and using it, making sure that you're getting the most out of it. So let's go ahead and let's switch over. Here we have our AirCheck G2 with my 3D printed stand. If you go out to Thingiverse and you look for NetAlly, you're going to see that they have these stands out there. We can print these. They just fit into those holes right there on the back. I got this fluorescent green filament and printed those out with those. And I just stuck these little rubber feet on the bottom. But it makes a nice little stand for holding that thing up and using it. So with our AirCheck G2, not quite as many interfaces as we saw on the Link Runner G2 that we just did. But what we have is we have an Ethernet interface here on the side. I'm going to show you how we can use this to ensure that we have wired connectivity, that this will check PoE, and this is how we're going to VNC into this tester. Over on the top, we don't have anything on this one. Here on the side, we have a connector for an external antenna, and I'll grab one of those in just a second. We've actually got 3 USB ports. We can use this to plug a USB drive into to download test results out of here, etc., if we're not uploading those to Link Live. And we'll talk about Link Live and see what Link Live can show us. Let me go down here to the wireless drawer, and I will grab an antenna. Let's see. There we go. We've got one of our antennas right here. So this is a directional antenna that we can connect to the AirCheck G2. Now, when we connect the directional antenna, we don't transmit. This is just for receiving. The strongest signal comes in on the front of the antenna right here. So if we're walking around trying to locate a rogue device, we're going to want to aim that toward where we're going. Now, if I'm walking along and I see the signal gets weaker, what I do is I back up a little bit. I turn to the right. I go that way. Signal gets weaker, turn around, go this way. Signal gets weaker. I rotate it 90 degrees. I point it up. I point it down. Now, the reason I rotate it 90 degrees is because it operates on this plane right here. So if I point it up and down, it doesn't give me as good an idea as if I rotate that plane 90 degrees and I turn it up and down. Then I can see, is that device that I'm looking for on the floor above me or the floor below me? So just a way to go in and check that, use that as a way to find devices out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to plug into the Ethernet port. I'm going to plug power in just so this thing doesn't shut off while we're using it. And I am going to come out here, and I'm going to go to my settings, and I'm going to go to device settings, and I'm going to go to remote user interface, and I'm going to hit apply. So what that does is this puts it in remote user interface mode. Now, it does blank out this screen right here, and it tells me the IP address of the AirCheck G2, which is 10.0.11.111. So I'm going to come over, and I'm going to go into VNC. I'm going to put that in. 10.0.11.111. And it's going to connect. So now I'm going to drag that over here to this screen, and I'm going to share that. So from a training standpoint, boy, this is nice because now I can VNC into this. But here's the cool thing. Right now, more than ever before, we're at a time when we can't easily travel somewhere. And even before that, traveling somewhere meant booking tickets, getting out there, doing analysis. What I did, just for grins, was I put together a little case. And this case has some of my NetAlly. I want to make sure I don't push that off the desk. Oh, there goes something. This is a case I put together with some troubleshooting gear in it. So what's nice is I can take this and I can close this up. I could throw a lock on it if I wanted, and I could send that out to a remote site, and I could say, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to plug this into an Ethernet connection, and you give me that IP address that shows up on there. Now I can VNC in, and I can see what's going on out there at that remote site. This gives me Wi-Fi visibility. We're going to see with tools like the EtherScope NXG, I can run an SNMP discovery. I can reach out into that remote network and see what's going on. But with Wi-Fi, I need to be there to listen. So with the ability to connect this out there via Wi-Fi. Now, if you want to get tricky, you could get a little wireless USB-powered bridge. You could plug it into the Ethernet port. You could plug it into the USB port. So now you could remote into this wirelessly, have somebody carry it around. But it gives you the ability to have some remote hands out there doing some of the work. All right, so what do we get? When we go into the home screen on here, if I come in and I tap on networks, what this does is this shows me those networks that I've seen out here. So this is just giving me a general picture of, apparently I live next door to an FBI safe house. Now, I don't know if I would call the Wi-Fi at my FBI Safe House 1, but there we go. So it's showing me what's out there. Now, I can come in from this screen and I can click on sort. I can say, what do I want to sort on? Now, the neat thing is when I put in sort, it's going to include that field. So I could say, which networks have the most clients? So we could come in here and I could say, well, we see right there, Netgear 77 5G has 3 clients. We see we have one AP, it's secure, and here's the signal strength of the strongest AP. So this is going to give me some high-level information about what's going on out there with that particular wireless network. Now, let's say I don't care about my neighbor's wireless networks. I'm concerned about those wireless networks that are closest to me. Well, this is where I can come in and I can hit filter. I can say, what do I want to filter on? Well, we could say filter by SSID, or I could say minimum signal strength. So let's bump that up to, let's put it at negative 65 dBm. So I could say, okay, so now it only shows me those wireless networks that have a signal strength of negative 65 dBm or greater. So if I'm in downtown Seattle, I might see hundreds of networks show up. I want to focus in just on those that are nearby. I can come in here and I can set up a filter just to look at those. So now we see that we've got something going on with PR guest. We're going to have to dig into that one and see, well, let's do that. I'm going to click on that. It's going to show me that we have 2 APs. It's going to show me my signal strength, my signal level, my noise level, my signal to noise. So my signal to noise is the difference between the signal level and the noise level. And when it comes to Wi-Fi, one of the things that we really care about is how big a difference there is there. And in fact, the bigger the difference, the easier it is for us to detect what that is saying when it's sending a wireless signal. So we could have a really good signal, but we could have really high noise. And if we have that situation, we're going to get lots of bars on our Wi-Fi signal, but we're not going to be able to discern what is being transmitted because we're trying to tell what the difference is between the data and the noise. So being able to come in and take a look at that SNR, really important. It shows us our 802.11 types, the number of clients, the band, the channels. When was that last seen? So if I come into APs and I start taking a look at that, I see that I've got 2 different MikroTik router boards out here. And I can click on those and I can see, here's PR guest, and it shows me what the supported rates are. It shows me the basic rates. It shows me the band. So now for this particular AP, shows the BSS ID of that AP. For this particular AP, here's the information. Now, down here at the bottom, I have my tools. So I could say locate. Now, locate remotely, kind of tricky. You could get a robot, you put this on a drone, or you could put it on a little RC car and drive it around, use that to locate. But the idea is that as we get closer, I'm just putting my hand over that. And that shows the impact of putting your hand over the antenna. You can see that signal drops down. But we can use this as a way to go out and locate that. I can even turn on my external antenna if I had that connected, and we can turn off the beep. So if you're in an environment where that might be annoying, although it makes you look really cool when you're walking around with this thing with that external antenna and you're beeping away. But what this does is this shows us what that signal strength is. And as that goes up, we know we're getting closer to the device. Now I'm going to go back. This tells me the signal level. If I click on connect, I want to connect to that device. This is not just connecting to that SSID. This is connecting to that BSSID. So it's connecting to that access point using that SSID, that network. So if you're deploying a new wireless network, or you're validating a wireless network that you have, we can use this as a way to ensure that not only can we connect to that wireless network, but we can connect to each AP on that wireless network. So in this case, I can see that I established a connection. I was able to connect to the AP, I was able to authenticate, I was able to exchange packets. Now, I have already entered the authentication information to connect to this. And I'll show you where we do that. In fact, we'll delete one of the ones I already have in here out. We'll add that back in. I can see that I got an IP address right here. So it tells me the IP address, the DNS server, gateway, DHCP, DNS1. We only have one DNS server. It tells me that we got to that target, and we were able to upload this to Link Live. I can now come down, it shows me what my PHY rate was. At what speed was I able to connect? What's the max PHY rate? Signal strength, retry rate. So now I can start getting a picture of what's going on. Now, I was helping a friend/client troubleshoot a problem at their facility where on their guest network, they were running into issues where people could not connect to their guest network. So in this case, we can come in, we can say, well, what did we see out here as far as our tests and stuff go? And why, if we failed to connect, why couldn't we connect? This is where I can click on the log. So the log is going to show me the detail of how I connected. So I configured that SSID, I configured that BSSID. I attempted to join that. So now we see we're connecting to the AP. We did an authentication request. We got authenticated. We sent an associated. Now we do our 4-way key exchange in here. We get our DHCP address, so it shows us how long it took to get our DHCP address, and away we go. Now, in the case of the network we were working on, what we noticed in here was that right after we authenticated to it and associated to the guest network, we got a de-authenticate. Well, that's weird. Why would I get a de-authenticate? Now, it could be that somebody was trying to hack the network and sending de-auths, but it was very consistent. The AP would go, dude, I'll connect you. And we would connect, and then would come back and say, no. And then we would connect again. And we kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Well, what would happen was there was a firmware problem with those access points. And they would say, I'll connect you. But as soon as you connected, they'd turn around and de-authenticate you, which made it virtually impossible to connect to the wireless network. So once we knew that, once we knew that that was the issue, we could then go to the manufacturer, and you have to say the right words, right? I mean, it's like those old games where I had to go up and it would ask me a question, I had to type in the right answer. In this case, when you call in trying to troubleshoot a problem with most vendors, you go, well, we can't connect to the AP. Well, it's your network. It's your configuration. But then you go, yeah, as soon as we authenticate it, de-authenticates us. Oh, you've said the right word, and you get escalated. Then eventually they say, yeah, you need to upgrade the firmware. That's a known problem. So you have to say the right word. So by being able to come in and take a look at that log, we can say the right words. We can see where it failed. We're able to measure it and see what's going on. Okay. Now, I can add comments in here. So in this case, I could say test comment. So I could go in and I could say studio. I could say done. Now, the job comment. The job comment is a comment that is added to every single test result. So if I came in here and I said /, I got to do it on here. I said QS and I said 0420. Okay. I said done. So in this case, what it's going to do is by putting the / in there, it is going to create a folder within Link Live. And it's going to take all the test results I run from this point on, and it's going to put them in that folder. So this is a really nice way to organize my test results within Link Live. So now I'll hit apply. So now it's uploaded that. Now what I want to know is, what kind of throughput can I get here? And this is where I can come in and click on tests. Now we have a couple tests. We are not going to be able to get to the test accessory that's over my shoulder right there. This is my test accessory. This is an Iperf server. We're going to look at how we use that. Also, this will work with Iperf. In fact, maybe I'll start Iperf on my laptop, which reminds me. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on range test. And with the range test, I can choose what is it I want to ping. So I could say I'll ping my default gateway. So it is going to start pinging my default gateway, and it's going to show me what my ping results are, what my signal level is. And as I walk around, again, I'll cover this up with my hand. As I walk around, we may see that signal level changes. So maybe toward the end here, or I'll send you a link to it, I did a range test with my friend Stuart, and we did that at his multi-story office building. As we walk down, we can see that there will be a red line right here, and that is where we roam to the next AP. And the AP name will change up here, and it will show us which AP we're connected to. So this gives us an idea. If we want to be able to walk around our facility and not lose connectivity, we can come in and we can do our range test right here, and it will show us that we are roaming from one. Well, actually, in this case, I take that back. This is the range test. This will just show us that one AP because I only connected to that one AP. To do my roaming, we're going to have to go back out and connect to the network. Okay? So let's do this. Let's come back. I'm going to click on Home. I go to Networks. And I'm going to connect to, actually, we're going to do a couple things in here. Filter. Okay, just want to make sure I have my filter applied. So we're going to connect to this. That's interesting. I'm only seeing one AP. Well, let's connect to Netgear 77. So we're going to say connect. Now, in this case, I need to come in and I can say, is this a captive portal? If you're in an environment where a web page is going to come up and you have to agree, we could turn Captive Portal on. What it will do is it will initiate the web browser on the AirCheck G2, and you can go in and type in information or hit agree. We can choose our authentication, our encryption. We need to put in our password right here. So I have put in the password. I'm going to say done. So now there's the password. I'm going to get a DHCP address. So I'm going to hit apply. We're going to let that connect up. So again, this is a great way to go in and test connectivity. Here's something I did just as a quick little test. At this multi-story office building, I went in and I connected to the guest network at a variety of different locations around the building. And this is uploading this to Link Live. And I'll show you Link Live and what we get. But I was actually able to get a measurement of what my signal strength, my SNR, my phi rate, all of that information for each point where I connected. And then I brought it into Excel, graphed it out, and it showed me which areas I had slower connections. So in this case, I'm going to come into tests. I'm going to go to Iperf test. It says running Iperf while connected to the Ethernet may yield incorrect results. We're going to take our chances on that. So now what this is going to do is this is going out to Link Live. And when I plugged in that test accessory, it went out and it said, hey, I'm at this IP address. And in this case, the Link Runner or the AirCheck G2 went out and said, what test accessories do we know about? Well, I do know that the one behind me is 108. So I'm going to click on that. So what I did was I was able to go in and have it tell me what test accessories we knew about. These could be at the local site. These could be off at a remote site somewhere. But now I've put in the IP address of the Iperf server. This could be the test accessory, or it could be my own Iperf 3 server. I could go and have it try and discover that device out on a subnet, type in my own IP address, but in this case, I'm going to hit start. So now what it's doing, it is doing an Iperf test with that test accessory through the wireless network. So it tells me that my average speed up was 245 megabits per second. And my max speed was 331. Now, my phi rate is 216. I doubt very much that I'm actually getting this kind of speed out of that phi rate. This one looks more practical. Here's the thing. It's right. It's using the wired port for part of this. Has a hard time differentiating between that wired port and the wireless port for this test. This is something that unless you're VNC'd into it, you're not going to run into. But this is where we can tell it the thresholds. I gave it thresholds. This gives us a pass-fail. That's why it's green. I can say, I need to get this speed out of it. We'll take a quick look in the settings in there and how we can set that. But this gives us an idea of what's going on right there. So icon indicates the hardware may be limiting the maximum speed. This it's telling us that because, again, we're using the Ethernet port in this case. But I want to show you on this screen. It's easier for you to see. So I can do an Iperf test. Measure what my Iperf throughput looks like on there. Ooh, that's great. Okay, so now I can take this out to a conference room. Walk in the conference room, connect. Hey, I connected. It uploads those results. I can run an Iperf test. Boom, this is what kind of throughput I got from this conference room. Okay, gives me an idea. Do I have the connectivity I need? You're not using the S word, should. You should be able to connect from that conference room and get good speed. What is good speed and what is should? So in this case, we're able to go in and see exactly what it is that we're getting. We could see we established a connection. If I expand that, we can see that information. We can see that we connected, and I could come into my log again, and this is going to tell me what AP I connected to. etc. So from a network standpoint, gives us a picture of what networks are out there, gives us a picture of can we connect? I can come in and take a look at channels. So one thing that I'm always looking for is, do I have a situation where I have adjacent channel overlap? I go into places and I see that somebody has set up an AP on channel 2. Why? Do you not know enough about our 2.4 gig to know 1, 6, and 11? Everybody knows that. Now, in this case, it's going to show me how many APs I see out there. I can click on that channel. I can see that channel 11 looks like it might be a little bit overloaded. So I could come in, I could see, whew, I got 6 APs on channel 11. So now we could start going in and taking a look at what APs do we see out there. We could say sort by SSID. So it shows me the SSIDs. I could see, man, you know what? Channel 11 looks pretty heavily loaded in this case. And if we come back and we look at our channel map, we're not seeing much happening at channel 1. So from my network, I can't control my neighbors. I've tried, they won't listen to me. But I could say, let's push some of our APs over there to channel 1 so we're not contending with all these other APs. If I'm going to go in and deploy a new wireless network, I could come in and take a look at my channels and see what channels are in use. Who's out there using the different channels? And I could use this as a way to architect which channels I'm going to use to make sure that I'm not contending with the wireless networks that are already out there. It's important that we first understand what's out there before we start going to and deploying our own wireless networks. We can take a look at access points. What we find is that in every case, when we click on these, it kind of takes us back to the same spot. So I could go from networks to APs through there to get to an AP, or I could come in here and I could get to this AP right there. I could say, hey, what's going on with that AP? Now, I don't know about you, but doing a wireless capture and capturing the wireless header is a very difficult task, if not impossible, with most laptops. But because we have a radio in here that's designed for allowing us to do that, and we have the drivers necessary, we can come in and I could say, hey, I want to do a wireless capture. So I could say, here's the capture file name, the file size, the channel, the BSS ID or the MAC address. So if I have my phone and I want to capture the traffic to and from that on the wireless side, I can put in the MAC address of my phone and use that to start capturing. I could say, what frames do I want to capture on there? So the Link Runner G2 works very well for helping us go in and do packet captures on this. So again, we can see what is this advertising. Now, what's interesting is authorization, none. Oh, yeah, I'm just blanking for a second there. We have security. Authorization. I could come in here and I could say authorization. I could say authorization class. This is where I can assign authorization levels and names to my APs. So in this case, let's come back here and let's look at this one. We see that this is Netgear 77. All right, so we could say authorization, and I could say alias. We'll say Mike's desk, because that one's sitting right above my desk. We'll say done. Now I could say authorization. I'm going to say that's authorized. That should be out there on my network. I'll hit apply. So now when we go in and we see that, it's going to put a name in there to go with that. And it's going to call it Mike's desk when we see that BSS ID. Also, it's going to say authorized. Now, if we come back and we go to another one, So let's say this Vizio TV right here. We're going to say, you know what? I told them to turn off the wireless on that Vizio TV, and they should not have that on my network. So I'm going to say unauthorized. We'll hit apply. Now, does that go boot them off the network or something? No. But what it does do is it changes the icon here, and we're going to see that when we go to do an auto test, this is going to help us see if we have any rogue access points out there when we do an auto test. So now we've taken a look at networks, we've taken a look at channels, we've taken a look at some access points. We can look at clients. So it's going to show me my different clients that I have out here. Again, I could click on a client. I could come in here and we could see our connection rate. What speed is it connected? Is it running security? What channel is it on? We can get some information about those different clients that we have out there on our networks. Interferers. This tells me I have a Bluetooth device out there. So this is going to go out and it's going to look for interference sources. Things like microwave ovens. I was at a production facility and a certain portion of the production line, they were having a real issue with their wireless. So we need to figure out what's going on. So we brought this in, I turned it on, we waited a little bit, boom, interference sources start showing up. It says conventional microwave oven. So I go in to the I look for the conventional microwave oven, and what I find is that there's a break area right behind this, behind a piece of plywood. They have a microwave oven back there, and they're using 2.4 gigahertz to communicate with their automation equipment. So the choice comes down. Do we get rid of the microwave, or do we move to a different band? Okay. So one of the questions, can we upload a list of devices? Now, the longer class that we've got on this, that is, I believe it's up on the NetAlly site. We've got a 4-hour class on this. I show how we can use the Windows AirCheck G2 Manager software to do things like take a CSV file with the names, the authorizations, and upload those. So a question came in, hey, can I go in and can I upload this? Yes, but you have to use AirCheck G2 Manager, that software that you put on your PC, and then you connect to the AirCheck G2 via a USB cable. We can use that to do that. So yes, you can upload that. And so you could say, hey, I want to go out there. I could sort by authorization, and I could find those devices. So if we said access points and we say sort, we say authorization class, and I hit apply, I could look for those devices that are unauthorized. I could sort by authorization class. We see that rogue one shows up, but I could go through and find those that don't have any authorization class and say, is that a neighbor? Is that one of mine? Is that one that shouldn't be out there? And use that as a way to help track that information. And come back out to the home screen. Auto test. Let's go into configuration for a minute. Lots of configuration information. In fact, one of the things that's really nice about configuration is I can take, and as I go in and build out these configurations for running tests, I can save those as a profile. And we're going to find that these profiles are the idea of profiles is consistent between the Link Runner G2, the AirCheck G2, and the Etherscope NXG, and even the OneTouch AT G2 and 10G. I can create a profile. That profile has a number of tests in there so that if I want to go back out to a site, I can load that profile. That's going to allow me to restore those settings that I'd set up before. I can even push that profile up to Link Live, so then that way I can send that profile out to other AirCheck G2s. This allows me to manage those profiles across a whole series of AirChecks. So in this case, we can come in, we can set our networks. So here I can go in and configure my networks. So I can add a network. I can manually add in a network and say, here's the SSID. Is it a captive portal? What's the authentication, etc.? Corp24, I could say, you know what, we're done with that network. I can delete that network out. We can configure up our access points. So here's where I could add an AP. I could give it the VSS ID, the alias name, and the authorization class if I wanted to do that manually. Or I could go in and import that information using the AirCheck Manager G2 Windows application. We can set up Iperf, we can manage our certificates for authentication, manage our files on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come into AutoTest settings. And we're going to test for rogue APs. We're going to connect to the networks. And in this case, we're going to connect to Netgear 77 5G. We're going to connect to this one. We're going to do PR guest. We're going to do all 4 of these. So what this does is this allows me to do a connectivity test to each one of those with the push of one button. So I'm going to hit apply. We're going to go back out to our home screen. I'm going to tap on AutoTest. So now it's going to start out by taking a look at my air quality. Now within our settings, we can set the values that we're looking for in here. Now you could use the default settings that come in here, which give you pretty good numbers. Or we could go in and we could tune those to our specific environment. And so in that case, we can dial that in to say, this is what we're looking for. So while those other ones are running, we could expand this. We could say, hey, what does our 802.11 utilization look like on each of our channels? We could say, what does our non-802.11 look like? What does our co-channel interference look like? So in this case, we've set a threshold of our threshold to say if we have 4 or more APs on a channel, then that is a warning. So right here, we say that we saw 4 APs on channel 11, which exceeded our threshold. Our adjacent channel interference, in this case, we're good on there. Now we come in and we see, oh, rogue AP. So we find that we discovered 1 rogue AP out there. So then we say for Netgear 77, network quality. Now it says network coverage 1 AP. So probably in my default settings, I have it set to say we need to have 2 or more APs for each SSID to provide some redundancy. So here we see we've got some co-channel interference issues with that. Security's good. We're able to connect, get to Google, upload. Here for Netgear 77, same thing, network coverage. We only had 1 AP. So in this case, if I want to make sure that this succeeds and I'm good with only having 1 AP, I'd want to change that threshold. Please, as you're going in and setting up these tests, do not set up tests that are going to fail in a normal condition. Set it up so that those tests pass. Now, we could continue on down. PR guest, we connected up. PR home, PR 5G. So the only thing we failed on here was our network quality. So we could go in and adjust that, get that to pass. Now what I can do in this case is I can click on save and I can save this session file. And I can upload that session file to Link Live. So I'm going to say we're going to upload that. We're going to put that job comment in and we're going to hit save. So now it's taking that session file. It's uploaded it to Link Live. Cool. So I'll tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to stop this share for a second. I'm going to share that entire screen. And I'm going to go over to Link Live. Link Live is a free service. Doesn't cost anything. But now we can come in here, we can see our test results for each one of these networks that we connected to. So it shows me that I connected to PR Home it shows that it put it in that folder. So I could click on that folder, and now I've narrowed my test results down to just that folder. So it shows me there's my air quality. There's PR Home 5G, PR Home, PR Guest, 5G. So now it's showing me what my phi rate was, my max phi rate, shows me my signal, my signal to noise ratio, shows me what access point I connected to, my IP address information. And see how these are linked together? That's because they ran as all part of the same AutoTest. So I could walk into conference room, area where I need to provide wireless connectivity, and I could come in and I could click on that. I could very quickly run this whole test and be able to show what the results are there. Now here's the session file from that. I could say view analysis. Let's zoom out a little bit. So now I have uploaded that session file. I could say, you know what? Show me what networks I saw out there, what security they're running, 802.11 types, and what channels are they on. Okay. If we see something turn blue, it's clickable, it's linked. I click on that, it's going to drill me into those APs that are out there. I can look at clients, I can look at interference sources. Okay. And I could come down here, say, you know what? I want to generate a PDF or a CSV. And the CSV is one I really like because with the CSV, I get the raw data. Now I can start bringing that in. I could import it into a database. I could do some analysis on it. So I can export that as a PDF. So I could say, hey, I want to do a PDF file. I could say generate. So it's going to go out there and it's going to work on generating that report. So we'll come in here. We'll wait a little bit. It's processing that right now. If we take a look at some of our different test results, here's where we connected. We ran one of our tests. There's our session file. Here's for my Etherscope. So let's go back to our files right here. It's still processing that. So we'll give that a minute to process, and then we should be able to take a look at that. All right, so just like our other session, and I'm doing an Etherscope NXG session right after this. In fact, I'll send out the quick starts right there. And if you want to click on that, there's still room in the Etherscope NXG one. And what I'm going to show you in there is AirMapper. And if you have an Etherscope NXG, tomorrow, the new version of the new version will be coming out. In fact, here, let me just do this. We'll make this easy. Although I'm going to make it easy on the screen I'm not sharing. I know. So let me just go into the Etherscope one here. We'll make this super easy for you. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste this. There is the link to register for the Etherscope webinar I'm doing in about 14 minutes on the Etherscope. What we're going to see is that we can do a heat map with that. So the new version is coming out tomorrow for the Etherscope. But these are some of the things that we can do with the AirCheck G2 as far as being able to go out and see what's out there on our wireless network. Again, if you can't see what's out there, if you can't measure it, it makes it very, very difficult to be able to troubleshoot it, to make sure it's working properly. So in the case of the AirCheck G2, I can use it to do roaming tests. So if we came back to that device, let's see, let's close that. Oh, here, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. We're going to do an Ethernet test real quick. And what's nice is they fixed this with version 4. It used to be I couldn't do this while I was connected. But in this case, if I plug this in to an Ethernet port, it shows I'm getting 47 volts PoE. I'm connected at gig. It tells me which switch and which port I'm connected to. I got DHCP. I got default gateway. So oh, you know what? I am so sorry. There you go. There's the link. I sent it out to just the panelists. I forgot to check that. You're going to see that link pop up in just a second there. So my bad on that one. But in this case, it did a quick test of the copper port. So you're going to go out and install a wireless access point. What do? You take your AirCheck G2 with you. You've got an Ethernet cable, which the person that put in the Ethernet cable said that should be connected to this network. It should be giving you PoE. Plug your AirCheck G2 in there. Do I have power? Do I have the address I expect? Yes. So now you know which switch and port that's connected to. Document that, or that got uploaded for us. In fact, what I could do is I could say, I'm going to add a test comment here. And I'm going to say AP 165, some unique identifier for that AP. I'll say done. I'll hit apply. So I just uploaded that. So this is the AP that I'm going to install at that location. So now if we come back over here to Link Live, and I look at my test results, we see that there is AP 165. So you know what you do? You're going to go troubleshoot. Somebody says, hey, this AP isn't working. I type in AP 165 in my search window. It searches through, let's see how many results I have out there. I have over 2,000 test results. It finds the one for AP 165, and it shows me that that's connected to this switch on this port. Now I know it's connected. I never had to go trace any wires. This is particularly useful if you're trying to do this for a remote location. I know where that's connected. This is the type of thing that you need to do as you're going through and installing. Check the copper cable. It uploaded it for us. We didn't have to, all we had to do is say what the port was, and now it tells me where that's connected. And in fact, after I do a filter like this, I could export that to a CSV file. I could create a CSV file that showed me each of my APs and what port and switch they were connected to at the time I built out the network. And if somebody reports that there's a problem, then they start using the should word of that should be plugged in there. And you go, yeah, it should have, but now we tested it and it's not. You go, what changed? Nothing. What changed? You ask 3 times. You have to. What changed? And then they say, well, we rewired a couple of things, but that shouldn't have made any difference. So now we've documented and we know how things are hooked up. So let's see. Let me just go through. Okay, yep. So someone said a feature request for exporting to CSV and AirCheck. I will pass that on. Oh, okay. So you got the link. I got the link out there. So lots to cover. One of the things that I do is I provide training on this equipment. So if you're looking for training beyond what we're doing here in this little quick start, and I'm doing these quick starts every single month. So if you have other people in your organization, after we get done with these, I'm going to add the next couple months out there. I'll pick some days. Live sessions, So I'm recording this one. I'll send you a copy of this. You can take a look at it. If you want to join in, you can do that and have people join on. So I appreciate you taking your time to join me today for this webcast on the AirCheck G2 from NetAlly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down, give myself a couple minutes to switch some things around. We're going to take a look at the Etherscope NXG. And if you think we have a lot to cover in this one, that one combines all the different tools that we get with the Link Runner G2 with what we get in the AirCheck G2, and it puts it into that Etherscope NXG. Plus, I'm going to show you some of the new features that we're going to see coming out tomorrow. All right, so thanks for joining me. You'll get an email tomorrow with a link to the recorded version, and I look forward to seeing you in a future webcast. Thanks very much.